All right, so this video is about governance and more specifically how to get a report of the Power Automate flows that are affected by the deprecation of a connector. The concept of this video is actually a recent experience with a client who received the following message from the Microsoft Admin Center warning that an action is being deprecated on the send email connector. So probably this is going to affect you as well. Right, so this is a news story from the community powerplatform.com. So the client got the following information from the admin center telling that the deprecation of the send me an email notification action. So if you're familiar with Power Automate, you know that there's the mail connector and the Outlook connector. All right, so here the recommended option is always use a Outlook connector, but maybe you are building flows where you want the sender of the email notification to be, I think it's notifications at powerplatform.com, something like that, uh, instead of because if you use the Outlook connector, it's going to be the user with the connection, so my user with my email instead of this generic email address. Now, what happens is the email connector has the send an email notification V3 action. This is okay, but the old one, it's not even V1, the original one is going deprecated. And this may be worrying because if you see here, say what is the deprecation timeline? It says at runtime in a few months, uh, the send email notification may begin to fail at runtime. So that means that if we don't take action soon, we may have some flows failing and our users won't be able to know why. Now, how can we tell if our flows are being affected by this situation or not? Because what we don't want to do is go flow by flow or tell our users to please review your flows if in case this is happening to you. This is very poor communication, right? What we want to do is target the communication to those users who are affected by this specific issue, not everyone else. So what we do here is here in the how do I find the actions in my flow? This contains the key, and we're going to see how to do that using the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and how to generate the report using External Toolbox, more specifically a tool called SQL for CDS, which is also documented in this video, no, sorry, in this channel, previous video from this channel. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so let's take a look at how can we find out those flows that are affected by this connector action being deprecated. So for that, we of course have to go to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and we go to the admin view. More of that, I have a video where I show you the top things to get out of the COE Starter Kit in my channel. And from here, we jump to the connectors page from this model-driven app. And here we can filter out here or here, just like in any Excel file. This is a model-driven app and filter by the mail connector. There are a couple of them, but the one that we are looking for is this one over here. So I'm going to get into it. All right, and this is our details that we were looking for. Shared send email, send mail. This is what the documentation was telling us about. Now, from here, you see, we can navigate to use in apps using flows. In this particular client that we are looking for, they don't use Canvas apps yet. Let's see. But what they do is use lots of flows. They have thousands of flows. And what we are going to do is navigate into this tab to see the flows that are affected by it. All right, now what I've done is, of course, uh, not show the makers' names. This is confidential information, so you'll see that along the video, maybe I cut some pieces so we don't show anything that we cannot show. Now, what we are going to do from here, we can go to the actual flows that are using the mail connector, but I already know one that is affected by this, so let me filter it out. All right, and here it is. What I've done is just basically filter by using the contains manager. This is the flow that we are looking for. I'm going to get inside. All right, and from this record, this is a connection reference. We can go to this lookup field, this blur out flow connection reference, and this will allows to navigate to the connection reference that is using it. And then from there, we are going to see the actual flow. Okay, and here we can see the flow record. And what we want to do is navigate to the connections and actions tab over here. And from there, we will be able to see the actual um, flow inside. So the boxes, the actions inside the flow. Right, so now here we are. And if you notice here, it's used twice here. So here, there are all the actions inside the flow. So inside the flow, if we were to go inside the flow and we had permissions, which we would be able to do that using the manage permissions action over here, we can navigate to flow details, get inside the flow, edit and see the actual actions. But we don't need to do that because here we already have in this subgrid over here, we have already the actions inside the flow. And if we navigate here, mail, you see that here, zoom in, okay, right, send email. This is exactly what we are looking for. So we see that this flow is really affected by this connection action being deprecated, and then it's obvious that we need to take action and notify the maker of this flow, the owner of this flow, telling them, hey, you need to update this, otherwise your flow is going to stop working. Right, so I show you just to navigate through the GUID, the monitoring app, to find out what are the flows that are being affected by this action being deprecated. But if we go backwards and go back to used in flows here from the connector, from the mail connector, we'll see that there is this number, 301 flows. And I wouldn't recommend you to go to do this flow by flow. It can be very, well, it can be exhausting and it's not a good use of our time. And so instead, what we want to do is create a report just querying the data model inside the center of excellence, because we know that there are tables behind the scenes, right? All these multi-nav is just displaying tables, and we can attack directly to those tables to get the information. All right, so this would be it basically. This is the XRN toolbox. I have a video in my channel regarding this tool. Please check it out because I walk you through the tool itself and how to use this and adding inside the tool called SQL for CDS. So you find plenty of information on the internet as well, but just let me know if you have any trouble with this and I'll help you out. And basically, we have created this query that gets this report, basically where we have the action type, the flow, ID in case, and this is a link, so we will be able to navigate to the flow itself, flow name, operation display name, and the creator name, so the maker, and his or her email, which I'm not displaying here for, of course, confidential reasons. We cannot, are not allowed to show that information. Now, um, how can you replicate this query? I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Of course, you can just copy it or ping me to, and I will be glad to send you an email with the query. But also take a notice, good notice here. If you just change these two strings, action type, this would be the connector, and admin operation would be the actual action inside, the one that is being deprecated. If we were to change this, but in the future, because we have another action from a different connector, I don't know, approvals or power ups, that it happened with the trigger, for example, the V1 trigger to trigger a flow from a Canvas app. Well, we just change this to whatever Microsoft tells us in the documentation, like in the article I showed you in the beginning of the video, and then we have the report already there. So you can reuse this SQL statement for other purposes. Okay, so how can we build one SQL statement like this one? So retrieve the columns that we want and the actual tables, because these SQL statements where the only thing that we need is basically the column names and the tables that we want to get the columns from, the information from. So if we go there, what we need to do is find out how to retrieve that information. So let me see. All right, so in any model-driven app, we can see very easily what's the actual entity name, so the logical name, the internal name of the record or the table that we are looking at by looking at the URL here. You see here, we go here. Let's zoom in. Hello, zoom in now. Yeah. Whoops. Here we go. All right. So here we can see the name of the entity, which is admin flow ID. And if we wanted to retrieve this particular record, here is the actual GUID of this record. So if we wanted, and this is actually what I did here in External Toolbox, is how to tell which columns do we want to retrieve from the flow admin flow entity. Basically, do the select all, select asterisk, select everything from this table for this flow ID, and then you will get all the columns and all the information, and from there you will be able to say, okay, I want the name, the email of the user, the name of the flow, etc. Now I'm not gonna trigger that because we will see information that I'm not able to show to you publicly, but what I can do is go inside in here in the email action details to show you actually what's inside. All right, so let's retrieve the actual name for this entity, and this is it. So in the URL, we just copy the name of the entity, and from SQL for CDS, this is what we would do. We would here put flow admin detail, flow action detail, and then from here, what we can do is take a look at the actual columns. So we can do top 10 only to see what columns are there. Hit execute. I will see all these columns over here. Now, we quickly will realize that in this column is where we can see the actual actions from flows and their name, and this is where we would filter out by this send email. So action type would be mail, and the admin operation, which is more to the right, it's send email. So if we do this here, we'll see that there are 10 actions in total in the whole center of excellence, in the whole tenant, 10 actions that are using this send email deprecated one. And from here, we can go to the flow, navigate there. But the interesting thing would be to create this select where we get the actual joint, so the columns that are interesting for us from the flow table and from the flow action detail table. Boom. And if we execute, this will be the result. So columns from both tables. This is what is happening here in the join, right? We're joining the two tables because there's an actual relationship. And we can see that from the center of excellence itself. Well, and now you'll be thinking, well, Andres, how the hell am I supposed to get this SQL statement if I don't know a thing about SQL? Well, in 2025, it's the age of Copilot, agents, whatnot. We can ask ChatGPT or actually Copilot for free. So let's do that. So if you use Microsoft Edge Explorer, recommend, you know that in the top right corner, there's a Copilot icon that you can just pop out in any page and you will be able to interact with an actual GPT model. And here, basically, what we are doing is ask if he can do some SQL query, and he'll say, of course. Now you just explain the story. There are two tables. You know the names of the tables. We just retrieve them from the URLs, and tell it, hey, please help me out, create the query for that. These are the columns that I want to get. There's an intersection. Intersection is this join. Is intersect is from two things. What's the intersection, right? The things that are coincidental based on a certain criteria, and it will pop out this SQL statement. Perfect. I just needed to correct here just a small thing, but you can copy the SQL query directly from my screen or send an email via my website to talk to me, and I will be able to send it back to you over email as well. Right, and the goal is from SQL for CDS. Here you can select everything, right click, copy with headers, or save as Excel or CSV, and here you go. You got a free report, pretty easy to get, with all this information that if you were to do it manually, well, it would be a lot of time, too much time. All right, so we just saw how to react when we get those warning messages from Microsoft that certain action, certain connector is being deprecated. So we need to quickly react and notify the users, the makers who are going to be affected so that they have flows or apps using that connector. Now, the first method we saw was just manually navigating through the Center of Excellence Starter Kit and getting into the weeds of what connectors they want to be affected, what flows are using that connector, and then inside see if it contains the actual action being affected by this deprecation message. And the second part of the video, the more useful one, is basically how to generate a report without navigating anywhere by using Experiment Toolbox, a tool called SQL for CDS, which also you can see in this channel, in another video from this channel. And from there, with a single SQL setting, we can get a report that we can copy or save as an Excel file, and then have all the flow names, the names of the flows that are being affected, and the email addresses of the creators, of the owners of those flows, so that we can have targeted communication instead of worrying everyone in our makers community.